Raymond Walsh stared at the folder in his hands. 17 names, all crossed out in red ink. 17 drivers in 2 years. The HR manager leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper that felt like a warning. No one lasts with Cassandra Hale. She fired someone for arriving 30 seconds early, another for breathing too loud. But Raymond wasn't listening to the warnings anymore. He was listening to the sound of his daughter coughing through another sleepless night in their apartment where the electricity had been cut off 3 days ago, where Hazel did her homework by candlelight, asking why she was the only kid at school without lunch. His shoes had cardboard in them. The eviction notice gave him 30 days. And this job, this impossible, soul-crushing job, paid double what his 3 current jobs combined could give him. The question wasn't whether he could survive working for the most ruthless billionaire in the city. The question was whether his daughter could survive if he didn't take it. The apartment Raymond and Hazel shared sat on the 4th floor of a building that had given up trying decades ago. The radiator clanked, but produced more noise than heat. The carpet was worn through in patches, revealing concrete underneath that stayed cold regardless of season. Hazel's bedroom barely fit her twin bed and a plastic dresser from the thrift store, but she had covered the walls with crayon drawings of the 2 of them holding hands under a bright yellow sun. 3 years ago, Raymond's wife had walked out without warning, without explanation, without even saying goodbye to their daughter. Just a note on the kitchen counter that said she couldn't do this anymore, and then silence. Raymond had waited, making excuses to Hazel, keeping his wife's belongings, as if that might summon her return. But months became a year, and he had to tell his daughter a gentler truth. "Your mother loves you," he had said, "but sometimes grown-ups make difficult choices that have nothing to do with you." That promise turned out to be expensive in ways Raymond had not anticipated. He drove for a rideshare company from 4 until 8, dropping Hazel at school before his first passenger request came through. From 9 until 5, he delivered packages for a shipping company, racing against deadlines with an aching back. Evenings he parked cars at restaurants downtown, watching wealthy couples hand him keys to expensive vehicles. He would come home past 10, check Hazel's homework she completed alone, and collapse into bed before the alarm went off at 4. Preston nodded slowly, considering Raymond carefully. He explained that Cassandra Hale was demanding in ways that most people could not handle. She had gone through 17 drivers in the past 2 years. Some had quit. Most had been fired. She required perfection, punctuality, and total availability. She did not tolerate excuses under any circumstances. She did not tolerate mistakes of any kind. She did not tolerate personal problems interfering with work. Most people, Preston said with something that might have been satisfaction, could not handle her expectations. The question was simple. Could Raymond? Raymond thought about Hazel's drawings covering their apartment walls, about the glasses she needed that he could not afford, about that promise he had made to never leave her. "Yes," he said, "I can handle it." Preston made him wait another 20 minutes, then returned with a folder full of paperwork. Raymond had the job. He started Monday. First paycheck would be $3,700 for 2 weeks of work, more money than Raymond currently made in a month. He signed everything without reading it carefully, too afraid the opportunity would somehow disappear if he hesitated even a moment. Monday morning arrived at 4:30, same as every morning, but this time Raymond's alarm carried a different weight of possibility and fear. The position required him to have the car ready and waiting by 6, which meant arriving at the private garage downtown by 5 to go through the vehicle inspection checklist Preston had given him. Raymond had arranged for Mrs. Patterson, the elderly neighbor from across the hall, who sometimes watched Hazel when Raymond was desperate, to stay at the apartment until it was time for school. He hated leaving his daughter before she woke up, hated that she would start another day without seeing him. But Mrs. Patterson was kind and reliable, and Hazel liked her well enough. Still, as Raymond quietly closed their apartment door in the pre-dawn darkness, he felt the familiar guilt pressing down on his chest like a physical weight. One day, he told himself, one day soon he would have enough money saved to be there when she woke up, to make her breakfast, to walk her to school the way other parents did. One day, this job would make everything better for both of them. He had to believe that, or he would not be able to keep going. Thursday of the first week was Hazel's 9th birthday. Raymond had promised her, absolutely promised her, that he would be home for dinner, that they would have her favorite cake, and he would read her favorite book before bed like they used to do. But at 6 in the evening, Cassandra was still in a meeting that showed no signs of ending, and Raymond sat there silently in the car outside her office building, watching the sky slowly darken, watching his phone, watching the time tick past. At 7, his phone rang. Hazel's voice was so small and hurt that it physically stabbed at his heart. "Dad, where are you? Everyone from my class already went home. Miss Goldwald Patterson made me a cupcake, but it is not the same as you being here. You promised. You promised me." Raymond felt something crack deep in his chest. "I know, sweetheart," he managed to say. "I am so sorry. I will be home as soon as I possibly can, just a little longer. Please." But it was not a little longer. Cassandra did not emerge from the building until 11 that night, got into the car without a word or glance, and Raymond drove her home before, finally making it back to his own apartment at nearly midnight. Hazel was asleep on the couch, curled up small, with Mrs. Patterson dozing in the chair beside her. The cupcake still sat on the kitchen counter, with a single candle stuck in it, never lit. Raymond paid Mrs. Patterson, gently carried his daughter to bed, and then sat in her small room for over an hour, just watching her sleep, hating himself more than he had ever hated anything. But the work turned out to be absolutely relentless in ways Raymond had not fully anticipated. Week 3 brought 18-hour days as Cassandra prepared for some kind of major product launch. Raymond would arrive at the garage at 5 in the morning and would not return home until past midnight, sometimes 1 in the morning. Mrs. Patterson tried her best, but she was 72 years old and struggling with the long hours, and Raymond could see the exhaustion etched into her face every time he came to collect his daughter. Hazel stopped asking when Daddy would be home. She stopped talking much about her day. She would just hug him quickly and then fall asleep almost immediately in the car on the way back to their apartment, and Raymond would carry her upstairs and tuck her in, feeling like he was somehow failing her, even as he was working himself to death trying to provide for her. His back ached constantly from so many hours sitting in the car. He lost weight because he was too afraid to eat anything that might leave a smell lingering in the vehicle. He existed in a state of perpetual exhaustion, running on 4 or 5 hours of sleep at most, always aware that one mistake, one violation of Preston's rules, could cost him absolutely everything. December 20th arrived cold and gray, the kind of bitter morning that promised snow before evening. Raymond woke at 4:30 to find several missed calls from Mrs. Patterson on his phone. When he called back, her voice carried a strain he had never heard before. "Raymond, I am at your apartment right now. Hazel woke up about an hour ago with a very high fever. I took her temperature, and it is 103.7. She is very hot, and she is not making much sense when she talks. I really think you need to take her to see a doctor right away." Raymond's blood went completely cold. "Can you take her to the urgent care center when it opens at 7? I will meet you there as soon as I possibly can. I promise." But Mrs. Patterson's voice sounded genuinely frightened now. "Raymond, I really think this is more serious than urgent care. She is not responding well. Maybe we should call an ambulance." "No," Raymond said quickly, his mind already calculating the cost of an ambulance ride and emergency room visit. "Just wait until urgent care opens. Give her medicine for the fever. I will be there by 8 at the latest. I absolutely promise." He walked Mrs. Patterson through, giving Hazel the fever medication, spoke briefly to his daughter, who sounded confused and scared, promised her over and over that Daddy would be there so soon, and then ended the call and drove to work with his stomach twisted into knots of worry, telling himself it would be fine. It was just a fever. Kids got fevers all the time. A few hours would not make any real difference. He was catastrophically, terribly wrong. At 7:30 in the morning, while Raymond was driving Cassandra to an early breakfast meeting with investors from Japan, Mrs. Patterson called again. This time, her voice was pure panic. "Raymond, I called 911. Hazel would not wake up. I tried and tried, but she would not wake up. The ambulance is here right now. They are taking her to Mercy Hospital. The paramedics said something about septic shock. They said she is very sick. They need you at the hospital right now. Raymond, she needs you right now." The world seemed to tilt sideways. What do you mean she would not wake up? The call ended. Raymond sat there, silently frozen, his hands gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles had gone completely white. In the back seat, Cassandra looked up from her phone for maybe the first time that entire morning. "What is wrong?" "My daughter," Raymond managed to force out. "She is being taken to the hospital by ambulance right now. I need to go. I need to go immediately." He started to pull the car over to the side of the road, but Cassandra's voice cut through his panic. "Where is the meeting location?" Raymond gave her the address, still 8 blocks away. "Where is the hospital?" "Mercy, downtown," Raymond said. "The meeting is absolutely critical," Cassandra said in that flat, emotionless voice. "Drive there first. Then you can go." Raymond turned in his seat to look at her directly, unable to process what he was hearing. "She's being taken to the hospital in an ambulance. She would not wake up. I need to go to her right now." After the meeting, Cassandra repeated, 2 hours at most. You can wait 2 hours. Raymond drove to the restaurant on complete autopilot, his mind blank with shock and disbelief. This could not actually be happening. This could not possibly be the choice he was being forced to make. But he drove, and he parked, and he opened Cassandra's door like the trained professional he had become. And she got out and walked into the expensive restaurant without looking back, without a single word. Raymond sat there silently in the car and immediately called the hospital. They confirmed that Hazel Walsh had just arrived by ambulance from their home address. Her condition was serious. They urgently needed him there to provide complete medical history and sign consent forms for treatment. The doctor's voice carried an urgency that made Raymond's blood freeze solid in his veins. "Mr. Walsh, we need you here now." "Not soon." "Now. How quickly can you get here?" 30 minutes, Raymond said, his voice shaking. "I will be there in 30 minutes maximum." But he did not start the car. He did not move. He just sat there, completely paralyzed, his mind racing in circles. If he left right now, Cassandra would fire him immediately. He would lose this income that was finally making their lives stable. He would lose the ability to pay for Hazel's medical treatment. The logic was completely insane, but it trapped him anyway. If he lost this job, he would not be able to afford to save his daughter. But if he stayed, what kind of father was he? What was he sacrificing? What choice was he actually making? For the next hour and 45 minutes, Raymond lived in absolute hell. He called the hospital every 15 minutes, sometimes more. Each call brought worse news. Hazel's fever kept climbing. Her blood pressure kept dropping. They suspected sepsis from an untreated bacterial infection. They desperately needed parental consent to start aggressive treatment with strong antibiotics and other interventions. Where was he? Why was he not there yet? Mrs. Patterson called 3 times, crying so hard she could barely speak. The nurses would not tell her anything because she was not family. She was not allowed in the room. Hazel had woken up once, just for a moment, and the first thing she said was asking for her daddy. Where was he? Why was he not there? Raymond sat there silently in that car outside that expensive restaurant, where people were having pleasant business breakfasts, and he hated himself with an intensity that felt physical, that felt like it might actually kill him. He wanted to die. He wanted to cease existing. But more than anything, more than his own life, he wanted to be with his daughter. And he was not. He was sitting in a car waiting for a woman who did not care if he lived or died, waiting because he was too terrified of poverty to make the right choice. At 10:15 in the morning, the hospital called again. This time, the doctor's voice was sharp with genuine urgency and barely controlled anger. "Mr. Walsh, your daughter has gone into septic shock. Her organs are starting to fail. We need to intubate her immediately and put her on life support. We cannot wait any longer for you to arrive here. If you do not give me verbal consent right this second, we will have to petition for an emergency court order, which will take a minimum of 2 to 3 hours that your daughter does not have. Where are you?" Raymond's vision blurred with tears. "Do it," he said. "Do whatever you need to do to save her. Please just save her. Please." He hung up and put his head down on the steering wheel and sobbed, great heaving sobs that shook his entire body. His daughter was dying. His 8-year-old daughter was being put on life support, and he was not there. He was not there because he had chosen this job, this money, this woman who treated him like an object. He had failed the one person who mattered most in the entire world. He had broken his sacred promise. He had left her when she needed him most. He would never, ever forgive himself. The restaurant door opened. Cassandra walked out ahead of her scheduled time, something Raymond's broken mind barely registered. She walked toward the car, then stopped when she saw him through the windshield. She saw his face. She saw him sobbing. And something happened to her expression. The mask cracked. Something that looked like genuine horror flashed across her face. She walked quickly to the car and opened the driver's door herself, something she had never done before. Raymond looked up at her, his face soaked with tears, completely beyond caring what she thought of him or what happened next. "My daughter is on life support," he said. "She's 8 years old, and she is on life support, and I am not there with her. I chose your breakfast meeting over my daughter's life. What kind of father does that? What kind of monster am I?" Cassandra's face had gone completely white. "What hospital?" "Mercy," Raymond told her. She reached into the car and pulled the keys from his shaking hands. "Get in the passenger seat," she said. "I am driving. Move. Now." Raymond barely remembered anything about the drive to Mercy Hospital. Cassandra drove like someone absolutely possessed, weaving aggressively through traffic, running multiple red lights, her face set in fierce concentration. She was on her phone making calls in a voice Raymond had never heard from her before, a voice that sounded almost human. "This is Cassandra Hale. I need your best pediatric specialist at Mercy Hospital immediately. I do not care if they are in surgery. I do not care what it costs. Money is not an issue. Get them there now." Another call. "Cancel everything on my schedule for the rest of this week. Everything. I do not care what it is. Handle it." She hung up and drove even faster. Raymond sat there silently in the passenger seat, with his body shaking uncontrollably, unable to form any coherent thoughts beyond the endless loop of, "My daughter, my daughter, my daughter." They pulled up to the emergency entrance with screeching tires, and Raymond was out of the car before it had fully stopped, running through the automatic doors. Cassandra right behind him somehow. A nurse met them immediately and led them through what seemed like endless hallways, until finally they reached a room with glass walls, where Raymond could see his little girl lying in a hospital bed, completely surrounded by machines, tubes running from her small arms, a ventilator breathing for her because she could not breathe on her own. He was at her side in seconds, taking her small, hot hand in both of his, feeling how burning hot her skin was despite all the medical intervention. "Hazel," he whispered, "Daddy is here now. I am here. I am so sorry I was not here sooner. I am so sorry." A doctor appeared, a woman in scrubs who introduced herself as Dr. Martinez, explaining in calm professional terms what was happening. They had caught the infection just in time. Another hour, maybe even less, and the outcome would likely have been very different. Hazel would need to stay in the intensive care unit for at least 48 hours, possibly longer, but the antibiotics were already working. She was going to be okay. She was going to survive this. Raymond heard the words but could not quite process their meaning. Going to be okay. His daughter was going to be okay. He put his head down on the bed rail next to her small body and cried again, this time from relief so intense it felt like it might split him in half. When he finally managed to look up, Cassandra was standing in the doorway of the room. She was staring at Hazel with an expression Raymond could not begin to interpret. Not quite sad. Not quite anything he could name. Just completely frozen in place. Like she was seeing something that hurt to look at, but she could not make herself look away. "Miss Hale," Raymond started to say. She blinked, and for just a moment the professional mask started to come back. "The bill will be covered," she said, in a voice that was not quite steady. "All of it. Medical care, hospital stay, everything. You do not need to worry about money. Keep your job. Be with your daughter. The two are not mutually exclusive." She turned as if to leave, then paused with her back to him. For a long moment she just stood there, and Raymond saw her shoulders rise and fall with a deep breath that seemed to take everything she had. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter than he had ever heard it, almost a whisper. "I had a daughter once. She was about that age, about 8 years old." Raymond felt all the air leave the room. All sound seemed to disappear. Cassandra still did not turn around. There was an accident, a car accident. 7 years ago this past October. I was in a meeting, a very important meeting that was going to make the company hundreds of millions of dollars. My husband called me 47 times. 47. I did not answer. Not once. I told myself I would call him back as soon as the meeting ended. By the time I finally got to the hospital, it was too late. She was already gone. The silence that followed felt suffocating. Raymond held Hazel's hand tighter, unable to speak, unable to move. Cassandra's voice continued, barely above a whisper now. Her name was Lily. She was 7 years old. The doctors told me later that she kept asking for me. Kept asking where Mommy was. Where was Mommy? And I was not there because I was closing a business deal. My husband left me that same day, right there in the hospital. He said I had made my choice, and now we both had to live with it. So that is what I did. I chose to stop feeling anything. I chose to make work into everything, because if I let myself think about what I had lost, I would completely shatter into pieces. She finally turned to face him, and Raymond saw tears streaming down her face, the first genuine emotion he had ever seen from her. But watching you tonight, sitting in that car, I realized something I have been trying not to know for 7 years. I've been shattering slowly this entire time anyway, piece by piece. I just refused to let anyone see it happening. She took a shaky breath. I am sorry. I am so deeply sorry I made you choose between your job and your daughter. I became the exact thing that killed my own child. I almost made you lose yours too. That is unforgivable. That is something I will have to carry for the rest of my life. She walked out before Raymond could find any words to respond, her footsteps echoing down the hospital hallway, leaving him sitting there in the ICU, holding his daughter's hand. And finally understanding who Cassandra Hale really was beneath all that carefully constructed ice. Not a monster, just a person so broken by grief that she had spent 7 years trying to stop being human entirely, because being human hurt too much to bear. Hazel stayed in the hospital for 12 full days. Raymond never left her side, except to use the bathroom and grab food from the cafeteria when nurses insisted. He slept in an uncomfortable chair that barely folded out into something that might technically be called a bed, waking up every single time she stirred or made a sound, holding her hand through the worst of the fever and through the confusion that sometimes came with the medication. Cassandra had been absolutely true to her word. When Raymond finally looked at the hospital bills, they showed zero balance on everything. When he tried to call her to say thank you, Preston answered and said Miss Hale was unavailable, but that Raymond should take as much time as he needed, fully paid, to care for his daughter. Raymond hung up the phone, stunned. This was the woman who had fired people for being 2 minutes late, who had never acknowledged his existence for 2 solid months, who had built an entire reputation on being ruthless and cold and inhuman. Yet she had dropped everything to drive him to the hospital. She had made sure his daughter received the best possible care. She had revealed a grief so profound that Raymond could not imagine how she managed to carry it every single day. Cassandra's face did something complicated. I should have gotten him here sooner. I should never have made him choose between work and being with you. Hazel tilted her head, studying this woman in the expensive clothes. My dad says you lost your daughter. I'm sorry you are sad. Cassandra closed her eyes, clearly fighting for composure. Thank you, she said, when she could speak again. That is very kind of you to say. Hazel held out the stuffed bear. Is this from you? Cassandra nodded. My daughter had one just like it. She loved it very much. I thought maybe you would too. Hazel hugged the bear even tighter. I do love it. It makes me feel safe. Cassandra sat down carefully in the chair next to Raymond, and for the next 20 minutes, she just listened to Hazel talk about school and her friends and the book she was reading. She asked questions. She smiled. A real, genuine smile that softened her entire face and made her look like a completely different person. And when it was finally time to leave, Hazel said something that made Cassandra's eyes go bright with tears. You should visit again. You seem really lonely. Cassandra looked at Raymond, clearly asking permission. May I? Raymond nodded, his own throat tight. I would like that, Cassandra said to Hazel. I would like that very much. When Raymond returned to work 3 weeks later, fully prepared to be fired, or at least severely disciplined, he arrived at the garage to find Cassandra already there, standing beside the car instead of waiting inside. It was so unusual, so completely unprecedented, that Raymond actually stopped walking, uncertain what to do. Good morning, she said. Not warm exactly, but not ice either. Something in between, something human. Good morning, Miss Hale, Raymond replied carefully. How is Hazel doing? The question startled him. She is much better. Fully recovered. Thank you for asking. And thank you for everything you did. I can never possibly repay you. Cassandra held up a hand, stopping him. You do not need to repay anything. I am the one who should apologize to you. She paused, and Raymond could see her struggling with the words. I have been difficult to work for. That is stating it very mildly. I have treated you as if you were invisible, as if you did not matter. That was wrong. I stopped seeing people as people years ago because it was easier that way. Less painful. But watching you with your daughter reminded me of something I have tried very hard to forget. That we are all human. That we all matter. That work is not everything, no matter how much I have tried to make it be everything. Raymond did not know what to say. This woman, this legendary businesswoman who had built a billion-dollar empire, was apologizing to him in an underground parking garage at 6 in the morning. "I do not expect us to become friends," Cassandra continued. "I am not capable of that anymore. But I can try to be less demanding. I can try to be more human. And I can acknowledge that you exist, that you have a life and a daughter outside of this car." She opened the back door herself, something she had absolutely never done before. "Can we try again? Can we start over?" Raymond nodded, not trusting his voice to work properly. They drove to the office in silence, but it was a different kind of silence now. Not cold or oppressive, but something quieter and more comfortable. When they arrived, Cassandra got out, then turned back before walking away. "Does your daughter still want to be a veterinarian?" Raymond was surprised she remembered that detail from months ago. "Yes, actually. She loves animals. She wants to work with them when she grows up." Cassandra nodded slowly. "My daughter wanted that too." She walked slowly toward the tall building, but something fundamental had shifted between them. Some wall had developed a crack that might, with time and effort, widen into an actual doorway. Over the following months, that crack slowly became an opening. Cassandra started speaking to Raymond directly instead of through Preston, asking about Hazel, genuinely wanting to know how she was doing. She adjusted her schedule more than once when Raymond mentioned his daughter had important school events. She gave him an envelope one day containing a full scholarship application for a summer veterinary program for young students, already filled out except for Raymond's signature. "She should apply for this," Cassandra said. "She would love it." "This is too much," Raymond protested. "It is not enough," Cassandra replied quietly. "But it is something." The change was not dramatic or sudden. Cassandra did not transform overnight into a warm and friendly person. She still held extremely high standards. She still worked long hours. She still pushed hard for results. But she began to actually see the people around her. She would ask staff members how they were doing, and would actually listen to their answers, instead of just waiting for them to finish talking. She would acknowledge good work instead of only pointing out flaws and mistakes. The company's turnover rate dropped dramatically. People gradually stopped looking terrified when she walked into a room. She began to let Raymond and Hazel into her life in small, careful ways. Sometimes when Raymond picked Hazel up from school and Cassandra's schedule happened to have a rare gap, she would ask if they wanted to stop for ice cream. She would sit with them at small tables in cheerful shops, watching Hazel chatter enthusiastically about her day, occasionally contributing a comment or asking a question. She never tried to replace anything or be something she was not. But she was present. She was participating in small moments of ordinary life that she had denied herself completely for 7 years. Once, Hazel drew a picture of the three of them standing together under that same smiling sun she had always drawn, and gave it to Cassandra. Cassandra stared at it for a very long moment before carefully folding it and putting it in her purse. "Thank you," she said, her voice rough with emotion. "I will treasure this forever." The walls of Cassandra's office changed too. Where once there had been only awards and magazine covers, now there was a small framed photograph on her desk of a young girl with dark hair and a brilliant smile, holding an ice cream cone. Next to it sat Hazel's drawing, professionally framed. Small steps toward remembering how to be human. Small steps toward allowing herself to feel again. On the anniversary of Raymond's first year working for Cassandra Hale, she called him into her office. He went nervously, still not entirely sure he could not somehow be fired at any moment. She told him to sit down. "You are being promoted," she said without preamble. "Director of Operations for all transportation logistics. You will oversee an entire department, hire your own team, manage all the vehicles. The salary increase is substantial. Raymond sat there silently, there stunned, unable to process what he was hearing. I am just a driver. He finally managed. You are someone who showed me that people matter more than profit margins, Cassandra said. Someone who reminded me what I had forgotten about being human. Someone who helped me start to heal from something I thought could never heal. That is worth more than any business degree or resume. She extended her hand for a formal handshake, but when Raymond took it, she held on for an extra moment. Thank you, she said simply, for not giving up on me when I had completely given up on myself. For showing me it is not too late to change, even after 7 years of being frozen. For letting me be part of your life, and Hazel's life. You gave me something I thought I had lost forever. You gave me hope. Now, 1 full year after that first terrifying Monday morning, Raymond sat there silently in the driver's seat on an ordinary Tuesday. But everything had changed. He had a new title, new responsibilities, reasonable working hours. He was home for dinner most nights. Hazel was thriving in school, secure in the knowledge that her father would be there when she needed him. The apartment they lived in now had 3 bedrooms and actual sunlight. The refrigerator was always full. The electricity was never in danger. They were not just surviving anymore. They were actually living. In the back seat, Cassandra worked on her tablet as always, but when she felt Raymond's gaze in the mirror, she looked up and gave a small nod. Not quite a smile, but close. Acknowledgement. Connection. Raymond thought about that first day when she had walked past him like he did not exist. Thought about the hospital when she had revealed her deepest pain. Thought about all the small changes since then, accumulating like drops of water slowly filling a well. The car pulled up to Cassandra's office building. Raymond opened her door, and she stepped out, then paused. Hazel has a violin recital next week, does she not? Raymond nodded, surprised she remembered. Would you mind if I attended? Cassandra asked. I have cleared my schedule for that evening. I would very much like to see her perform. She would love that, Raymond said, feeling warmth spread through his chest. We both would. Cassandra nodded, her professional mask mostly in place, but Raymond caught the flicker of something genuinely soft underneath. Good. Please send me the details. She walked slowly toward the tall building, then turned back one more time. Raymond, thank you for coming to work that first day, even though your daughter needed you. Even though I did not deserve your dedication, I know what it cost you now, and I know I handled it terribly. But I am grateful it happened. It led to this. To me, remembering how to be better. To me, learning that it is never too late to change. So thank you. She disappeared into the building before Raymond could find words to respond, leaving him standing beside the car with unexpected emotion tightening his throat. He got back in the driver's seat and sat there for a moment, collecting himself. His phone buzzed with a text from Hazel. Love you, Dad. Having a great day, Raymond typed back quickly. Love you too, sweetheart. See you tonight for dinner. He looked at the building where Cassandra had vanished, thought about the unlikely connection that had formed from desperation and shared pain and the simple act of choosing to keep trying when everything seemed impossible. Sometimes the jobs we take out of sheer necessity become the places where we learn the most important lessons about what it means to be human. Sometimes the people who seem the coldest, the most untouchable, are just protecting hearts that have been shattered into so many pieces they are afraid those pieces can never be made whole again. And sometimes, if we are very lucky and very brave, we get the chance to help each other heal, one small, courageous moment at a time. That was worth more than any salary or title. That was worth absolutely everything in the world. That was what it meant to be alive.